Today, I'm taking you back in time, to the shores of the Nile, the story of one of the most captivating and mysterious women in history, Cleopatra. With her beauty, intelligence, and power, she shook the world. But how did her life end in such a tragedy? Let's uncover the answer together. Cleopatra, even her name is enchanting, isn't it? The last pharaoh of Egypt, but she wasn't an ordinary queen. Cleopatra used her beauty to influence the most powerful men in Rome. It all began with Julius Caesar. She walked the halls of Rome with him. But Cleopatra's true love was Marcus Antonius. So, how did this passionate love story turn into a tragedy? History feared Cleopatra's power. She wasn't just seen as a queen, but as a threat. Yet Cleopatra always made clever moves. For her, the welfare of her kingdom came above all else. But this time, her enemies were far too strong. The Battle of Actium, it all started here. Cleopatra and Marcus Antonius fought against Octavian, the new leader of Rome. But in this battle, Cleopatra's fleet was utterly defeated. Why? Historians still debate the reason. Some accuse Cleopatra of betrayal. But what if this was just Roman propaganda? After losing the battle, the pair fled to Egypt. But what did Cleopatra do after such a devastating defeat? Cleopatra was a woman who never gave up. In her palace, she was making new plans. But this time, someone was closing in on her, Octavian. The Roman army was advancing quickly toward Egypt, and then the tragedy unfolded. Marcus Antonius wanted to make one last stand with Cleopatra. But then came the horrifying news. Cleopatra was dead. Was it true? No, this was a trick Cleopatra had devised to confuse her enemies. But Antonius couldn't bear the news. He took his sword and plunged it into his chest. But here's the twist: Antonius didn't die, at least, not immediately. He was gravely wounded and brought to Cleopatra. They looked into each other's eyes one last time. Antonius said, "I cannot live without you," and took his final breath. Cleopatra had lost her love in her arms, and now, with Octavian at her doorstep, what was she going to do? Cleopatra would never allow herself to be a slave. Octavian planned to take her to Rome and parade her as a prisoner before the public. But everyone knew Cleopatra would never allow such humiliation. She had lived as a queen with dignity, and she was determined to die with it. According to legend, there was a venomous cobra in a basket. Cleopatra placed the snake on her chest and ended her life. But what if this is just a story? Some historians claim she drank poison. What if she was the victim of an assassination? Could Octavian have hastened her death? The truth remains as silent as history itself. Cleopatra's death marked the end of Egypt. With her, an era came to a close. Egypt became part of Rome. After Cleopatra's death, the rumors that spread through the palace were like a storm. While the palace in the capital of Egypt trembled with grief and fear, whispers among the people grew louder. Cleopatra was a legend, a queen. Her death wasn't just the end of a country, but the end of an era. But what did the people think? Everyone had their own version of the story. Some of the courtiers saw Cleopatra's suicide as an act of heroism. The queen died with honor, they said. Death by a snake, a fitting end for her. But another group was more skeptical. No, it was murder, they whispered. Octavian had her killed. Her death was an assassination, a plot to completely take over Egypt. In the darker corners of the palace, talks about Cleopatra's final moments became more and more strange. Many people believed her death was linked to a tragic love story. After Antonius' death, she couldn't bear it and took her own life, some said. But another rumor circulated. No, she thought she could kill herself, but she couldn't bear Antonius' death, so she ended her life afterward, others claimed. Everyone who had seen this powerful woman rule for so many years had a different way of telling the end of her story. Cleopatra's death marked the end of Egypt. With her, an era came to a close. Egypt became part of Rome, but Cleopatra's name was never forgotten. She became more than just a queen, she became a symbol of love, power, and resistance. Do you think Cleopatra truly committed suicide? Or did history rewrite her story? The answers may never be fully known. But one thing is certain, Cleopatra's story will always continue to captivate us.